Attic Find Friday of a video game today. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. So back in 1980-ish, we didn't have streaming. And I was only one at the time, so I wasn't playing video games, but I do recall the tail end of this era. We didn't have streaming, we didn't have thumb drives, we didn't have CD-ROMs, we didn't have 3.5-inch floppy disks. We had 5.25-inch floppy disks. And games typically at that time came on 5.25-inch floppy disks. And they were legitimately floppy, unlike the 3.25-inch or 3.5-inch floppy disks. And a eBay seller named W.C. Whitson back at the end of March was looking through old stuff from his childhood, and he found some old video games from his 12th birthday. Two video games. One of them was called Odyssey from the Apple II. One of them was called Mystery House. And he booted them up, they worked, and he put them on eBay. Didn't really do a whole lot of research, and just sold them. And Odyssey sold for $285, which he was very pleased with, obviously. The Mystery House was a little bit of a different story, and it surprised him a lot. And I reached out to him back when this happened and asked him, what's the story behind this? How did you find this game? And he said that when he was 12, he received both of them for his birthday, Odyssey and Mystery House. He was 12 in 1980, and he played Mystery House through one time. Didn't love it. Loved Odyssey, though, and had a lot of really good memories from Odyssey. And he basically forgot about Mystery House. Didn't really know much about it. Didn't care. Mystery House was a game designed by Ken and Roberta Williams, a married couple who had never developed a game before. It was just their first game. And Roberta had played a game obsessively called Colossal Cave, and decided she wanted to make her own game. And so she designed the game, and her husband, Ken, coded it for her, and they sold it via mail order in catalogs, sold 10,000 copies initially. There were 10,000 of the initial print run, and they made, in today's dollars, about $618,000, which was $167,000 back then. And Roberta was literally buying Ziploc bags, packaging the game up into the Ziploc bags at her kitchen table, and then shipping them herself. And she would answer her home phone to give hints to players, which is just, it's a wild time in gaming history. And it was a pretty popular game, obviously, and they ended up developing a company called Sierra Online. And if you were a gamer in the 80s or 90s, you knew Sierra Online. They developed King's Quest, the series King's Quest. The game that I remember most from their history is Phantasmagoria, which was another horror game. Mystery House was also a horror game. And Mystery House, by the way, was also the very first video game developed for the computer with graphics. So it's very rudimentary graphics, crude 8-bit graphics, I think. I'm not a computer guy. I don't know a whole lot about computers, so excuse my ignorance. But yeah, it's just so cool. Phantasmagoria was a blast. It was kind of earth-shattering, kind of like Myst, which was developed by Cyan, different company. Phantasmagoria I played a ton. Such a fun game. So back to W.C. Whitson, the eBay user. He said that he booted it up. It worked fine, but he said it chafed because it was kind of bent a little bit. He said that it could easily be fixed if somebody just flattens it under something heavy for a little while. He didn't think to take the time because he just wanted to sell it. He figured he'd get a couple $100 from it at best. And it just kept blowing up, and it kept getting a lot of publicity, and games websites were doing stories on it. It ended up selling for over $14,000. And I waited to see if the payment came through, and it apparently did. It did end up selling towards the end of March or early April for over $14,000. It was a legit sale. One gaming expert believes that it wasn't even bought as an investment. It was just sort of to say whoever bought it probably bought it just to say that they had it, just to play it, because it's such a legendary game among gamers. But another game that Sierra Online created was Leisure Suit Larry, which I played a little bit at my friend's house. I wasn't allowed to have it at my house, but Leisure Suit Larry was a lot of fun too. It was a pretty amazing company, Sierra Online. A lot of great games. They were purchased by CUC, I think in 1996, and then they were embroiled in an accounting scandal a year or two later and went out of business. So Sierra Online went kaput, and yeah, just a really cool story. W.C. Whitson seemed completely shocked by the news. He said that he would have spent more time researching had he known it was that popular. Those first 10,000 copies, it's so rare that any of them survived. One of them sold about 10 years ago for like $1,500, but there are so few of them, of the first 10,000 copies that survived. There are more of them of the next 5,000 because they were more professionally done, but this one was still complete in its sleeve, the little paper sleeve that a floppy disk came in the bag, and looked amazing, and actually booted up. So good for this guy for just keeping it in a box somewhere for 43 or 44 years. Awesome story. I've got more of these. Let me know what you think about this type of Attic Find Friday non-sports card. If you like it, if you don't, I'm curious to know. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a great weekend.